Hello and welcome to another episode of Wholesaling the Cool Way with me, Mark Cool, and my son, Jasper Cool. On this podcast, we break down some deals and just talk about the day-to-day of running a wholesaling real estate business. And we're both based here in North Carolina. Jasper is based in Arizona, and he still works in North Carolina because he started his business here. So, hey, Jasper, good to see you on a Sunday.
Yeah,
And,
excited to jump back into it.
Yeah, we had a week off, and we were just talking about revamping our format. So we're going to work on some deal breakdowns today. We're going to discuss a couple of deals that we've closed recently or worked on recently, and just share the nuts and bolts of those deals. And we'll talk a little bit at the end about tools and inspiration, education, stuff like that. So let's get right into it. Do you have a deal ready that you want to break down? Do you have something?
Yeah, I can jump into it. You want me to start off?
Yeah,
Let's do
yeah,
it.
jump in. Tell us what you got.
Yeah, I thought it would be fun to break down a deal that wasn't super difficult because if anyone's been listening to this podcast for a while, almost every one of my deals is very difficult, it seems, at least lately. And so I had one recently that was just like smooth sailing. It was really refreshing to have that. So I just want to share this one and hopefully encourage everyone that your deals can look like this, and hopefully everyone listening, your deals always look like this. So I'll just dive into it. So the first thing that was exciting about this one was that it came from Google PPC. And so that's been a channel, obviously, we've been working on since December of last year, and we're starting to get some traction now. So I'm really excited about that. But this lead
That's
came
great.
in,
You
what's
almost quit
that?
on that, right? You were ready to throw in the towel on that.
Yeah. Yeah, I was ready. I think it was like mid-March, mid to late March. I was like, man, I just want to, I just want to quit this. I told you, I told my operations manager, I told everyone, I was like, I don't know if I want to continue this. And then we agreed, we're like, we'll give it 30 more days, right? And so we gave it till the end of April, and April ended up being the turning point for us, where we finally got our first like actual deal from it, and we closed that one early May. And then we had the second deal come in, and we closed this one in later in May. So now two deals closed in May, and another one hopefully closing in June. So in the span of 1 month, it totally turned around. So
So how many months runway is that from the time you started until you started closing deals?
yeah, we started in December, so just about 6 months before we actually made any revenue from it. So yeah, for anyone listening, I think that's probably a good marker. I'll be honest, I think I was too optimistic with it because when I spoke to the PPC company, they were like, probably about month 3 or 4 is when you're going to start seeing some traction. I was like, okay. And so I was kind of waiting for that after the third month, which was like mid to late February. I was like, I'm not really getting any traction. Like, what's going on? And so that's why at the end of March, I was like, this is the end of month 4. They said 3 to 4 months. I still don't have any revenue in. So I was like, I was getting kind of frustrated with it. But I think the better marker for people to look at is about 6 months. If you're gonna commit to it, look for breaking even about 6 months. At least that's what happened for me. So,
And
but
you
yeah,
spent a fair amount of money on that too, building that point. You spent probably
yeah,
over 2K, right?
a lot of money. Yeah, we're spending between 4,500 to 5,500 a month, so a lot of money after 6 months. But we're not like crushing it, but we're finally in the green after these two deals being closed. So that's nice. And like I said, we have one more scheduled for June, so hopefully it will just start to kind of compound from here. And if we can get just honestly, if we can get two deals a month closed from that marketing spend, I'd be happy with that. It's about 2,500 bucks a deal. It's not too bad, and we can be profitable with that. So even if we can just get two a month, I'd be happy with that. Hopefully, we can get more. And then at that point, if we start actually getting consistent results, I would like to see like 3 months in a row we're getting consistent results. But once that happens, then all I literally have to do is tell them to up the budget, and we can hopefully get more results. So that's the exciting thing about PPC, and that's why I wanted to really test it out and see if it would work, because it's super easy to scale. Whereas with SMS, we have to buy more data, go into new markets potentially, do all the skip tracing. More leads and stuff with SMS requires a lot more work. Whereas with
Yeah,
PPC, it's as simple as turning up that budget and getting more leads. So
it's
that's
money. Yeah,
yeah,
it's money and faith.
yeah, yeah. But the nice thing about it is that it requires no manpower. So hopefully we can grow that and scale that within the next few months. Like I said, I'd like to see a couple months stacking up of consistent revenue from that channel, but we're trending in the right direction. So yeah,
That's great. That's great to hear.
yeah. Thank you. But yeah, I'll jump into it. So this one came in on May 6th, and the lead came in. Let's see, it came in at 11:52 in the morning, And we try to call these leads as fast as possible. Obviously, that's an important thing with online leads, is to get to them as soon as you can. And so Mike from our team reached out to him, got him on the phone, which can be a challenge with some of these leads. That's one of our challenges with these leads, is they come in, we do call them right away, and we sometimes double dial, triple dial right away just to try to get them on the phone. And a lot of times we might spend up to a week just to even talk to an online lead, which is frustrating because, it's kind of just, as soon as you get that lead, the money's already gone on the lead. The money's already been spent. And so you're really trying to get them on the contract. But anyways, we got this guy, we got in contact with him very quickly. And then we do the 2-call system, that Matt Larson preaches. So the first call is just kind of learning about the seller, seeing what their situation is and all that good stuff. And then the second call is when we present the offer. And so this one was an interesting situation because the seller had actually went with another, I think it was another wholesaler. And for those of you listening, one of the strategies that's become more popular in investing is called novations, which is where you just get a property under contract and then you list it on the market. And basically, it's basically wholesaling, but you're listing the property on the market instead of trying to sell it to cash buyers. So that sounds like this was the scenario going on with this guy. And I'm just checking right now, but for exact stats, but I think he was on the market for like 2 or 3 months with these other people, and they just weren't getting any action. And he said, actually, I think they had a buyer, but it like backed out or something the week before they were supposed to close. And so at this point, he was like super motivated, which is great for us. But he was like moving to Florida in 1 week, and he needed these funds because in Florida, apparently, he told us that you need to have first and last, and then like I think you have to have 3 months in total of rent that you pay up front. So it's like not just first and last, but you have to have like 3 months basically of a deposit. And so he needed like a good chunk of change to put down. And his mortgage balance on his property was fairly high anyway. So I think he needed like 10 to 15K to get down there. And our numbers were kind of tight on it because they had it listed at like 260. It was really only worth like 260, but this guy's mortgage, I think, was like 180. So it's kind of like a tight deal in that sense because there wasn't too much of a spread there. But luckily, the property was in good condition, so it really didn't need much. Like probably could have turned it around and listed it for 260 with a little bit of work, and then it would actually sell. But they were just listing it as is. Anyways, and so
should have just dropped the price down. Did he have to get 260 out of it?
No, I think these other people, I'm not sure if it was a wholesaler or a real estate agent, but I just don't think they were very good at whatever they were doing. So because they did list it at looking at it now, they listed it at 275 and they dropped it down all the way to 260 and it still wasn't selling. So I think they just weren't doing a great job of marketing it, because I think this property on the market could sell not 260, but probably like 230, 240 in as is condition probably. But anyways, we got it under contract, and that happened all very quickly. It happened within like 1 to 2 hours from the lead first coming in. So that was awesome because he was just like ready to go. And we told him, it worked in our favor because we had just closed on a deal in the same neighborhood earlier this year, literally like 1 block away. And so we made that map, that you and I both have. And so we sent him a link to our map. And we were like, hey, just so that we're like legit, we literally closed on this property we gave him the street name and everything. We were like, you can look it up. We closed on this one just in January. So, we're serious buyers, all that stuff. And I think that helped us get the deal. And so we got under contract that day. And then the awesome thing about it too is that the seller sent us pictures. And that's really nice when that happens because it saves us a lot of time. Sometimes when you get a property under contract, it can take you 1 to 2 to 3 weeks just to even get pictures of the property, and that really delays everything.
I love it. I love it when sellers send pictures. It's so helpful.
Yeah, it's the best. So he was actually texting pictures before we even went under contract because we were like, it'd really help if we could see the property so that we can determine what we can offer you and all that stuff. And so he sent us a bunch of pictures. Like some sellers will send us really terrible blurry photos and you can't do anything with it. He sent us like good quality pictures. And so it was great. And so then as soon as we got under contract, we were already ready to go on the marketing side with those photos. And so immediately I got to work on that. We got it sold within like a day. And then we closed, I think it was 16 days from start to finish. From Tuesday, May 6th, we closed it on, let me see.
From the day the lead came in, you closed it in 16 days?
What's that?
From the day the lead came in, you closed it in 16 days?
Yeah. So it's a super quick turnaround. Yeah. So this closed last week, but we didn't do our pod last week. So I was just pulling this one. But yeah, this one closed on the 22nd. So 16 days from the date the lead came in we got under contract on the 6th also, but 16 days from start to finish. So that might be a record for us. It was a really fast turnaround for a deal in total. So I was just sharing that because a lot of times we might have a situation like that and then we open escrow and boom, there's title issues and there's all sorts of stuff. But this one was like so nice because there wasn't any issues. Like we sold it to a good buyer. He was a cash buyer. So he was ready to close even sooner, but we had to wait for the mortgage payoff. And this one was in the HOA. the HOA is even slower than the mortgage company, so that's frustrating
Yeah,
sometimes.
those
But
people can be slow.
yeah, yeah. So we were actually, I think, planning to close on the 20th, which would have been 2 days, even faster. But we had to wait on that HOA payoff. That was the last delay. But yeah, 16 days start to finish, and obviously the seller was super happy, and yeah, so that was it, and it was
Awesome.
great for us because it was a PPC deal, so we got some money in from that.
Did you get a 5-star review from him?
We didn't get a 5-star review from this guy. No, he was super happy, but no, I guess not happy enough. So
Did he give you a review, but it wasn't 5 stars?
no, he just didn't give us a review. No. So
Oh,
we'll
okay.
we'll follow up with him, but hopefully he'll leave one maybe in the future. Sometimes we get sellers like a couple weeks later leave us a good review. So
Yeah,
yeah.
that's awesome. That's great to hear. And it's even more of a victory because it's on the PPC, which, you were really frustrated with and feeling like you had maybe wasted money on it. A few
Yeah,
weeks ago, you were
definitely.
like, "Man, I should have just trained myself to do, um, Google
Yeah.
Analytics, AdWords and stuff." So, that's
Mhm.
great, getting that result.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a big win for sure.
Awesome. Love to hear it. We like slam dunks in this business.
Yeah.
We're few and far between sometimes.
I know.
You can get on a run where you get a few slam dunks in a row, and then you get the difficult ones and kinda goes up and down.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, so I'm gonna do a little bit of a different thing with the deal I'm gonna talk about. It's not closed yet, but it's a deal that we've had under contract for, well, I'll just break it down. This one's a little bit different than some of the stuff we talk about on this podcast in general, but it's a deal that we bought subject to, and then we're selling on an owner financing, uh, plan, I guess I could say. But, we bought this property in May of 2024, and it was, distressed sellers. They were getting a divorce, and the husband had moved out, and the wife was living in the property, but she wasn't paying the mortgage. So she racked up a bunch of arrears on the mortgage, and she was, I think, yeah. So anyway, she didn't pay the mortgage, but I've heard all the drama about the whole thing from many parties. But somebody said that she had the money, but she bought a new car instead. So it sounds like maybe drugs were involved or something, or not clear thinking on some level. It was like a brand new Charger in the driveway, but no mortgage being paid. But, so she got in over her head with that, and then she got somebody from a neighbor to move into the property who said he would take care of pay the mortgage for her and help her out. And then this guy moves in, and he apparently didn't pay the owners of the property. And so the arrears continued on, and he also decided to start a small business in this property where he was renting out rooms to Section 8 type people, and, uh, and he had no authorization to do that from the people we brought it from or anybody else. But so when we got to the seller, they were fed up. They just wanted to wash their hands of it. It was only the
Mhm.
husband was on the title, and he just wanted to wash his hands of it. He wanted to clear his credit if possible, not get foreclosed on, and he didn't want to deal with this guy in the house that they couldn't get out of the house or get to pay them. So we took it over. I asked the guy how much he wanted to get out of it, to for us to take over the mortgage. I talked to him about what subject to is, and he was okay with that. Basically, us taking over the mortgage payments. And he said he wanted 5 grand out of it. So I did the math and looked at the arrears, and there was a second mortgage in arrears. So I'll try and run the numbers really quickly. And this is just off the top of my head, but it's like $115,000 mortgage balance. At the time, the Zestimate was around 200,000. So, and then there was a $10,000 second mortgage on it, and the arrears were, I think, 15 or something like that. Anyway, all in, we're like 135. So I don't know if that all adds up correctly, but that's what I remember. So we're at about 135 with arrears, paying the seller 5,000 and the second mortgage. So anyway, we're in about 135, and then we had to evict this guy. So that took us a couple of months to try and talk to him, try and get him to go on his own, file the papers, and then I actually met this guy at the courthouse in Cumberland County, where this property is, and we met in the waiting room. to go in and see the judge, and we had a little chat. He was like, "Hey, I'm the guy you're evicting." I was like, "Oh, hey, you haven't returned my calls or my texts," you know. And so we had a fairly friendly conversation for the situation of our relationship. It was he was pretty cool, and we went in before the judge, and I showed all my paperwork of all our communication with him and the failed communication when he said he was going to be out. We had filed all the proper documents to evict and everything, and he basically just had stories and stuff that he was telling her, and so she went with me because I had documentation and had done all the proper paperwork with the court. So he had, I think, a couple weeks to move out, and he did. He, to his credit, he moved out on time, and we actually walked together out to the parking lot after the thing and talked. And you know, he said he would like to have an opportunity to buy it. I was like, sure, I'll let you know when it's up on the market. You can make an offer if you want.
Yeah.
So, um, and so he didn't follow up on that, but I did give him an opportunity. And so then we finally had the property, and then we figured we were going to just put it up as is and sell it on owner financing because there was a lot of meat on the bone at that point. We're in for 135. We got roughly 200, even if you're being conservative, 180, ARV, and the repairs weren't big. A lot of cosmetic stuff. We found out later it did need a new HVAC system. We didn't know that at the off the top, unfortunately, but there was still room with that. We had plenty of room in there to make a profit. But for whatever reason, we were not able to sell this thing. We had people go through it. We had a bunch of lowball offers from investors, and we paid people to do a couple of minor repairs there, and it just didn't sell. We put it on MLS with flat fee listing, had some agents show it. We got very little feedback from agents, which was frustrating because it's kind of part of the culture of real estate agents to give feedback every time you show a house, just as a courtesy. But they did not give us any feedback, which was frustrating. We just didn't get any specific feedback from any agents on that. So here we are, and it's May, and we've had this thing we purchased this thing. We own this property subject to since last May. So it's now 12 months. And last week, Jasper and I talked about this, and he encouraged me to just try and sell it as is, but drop the price. We had it as is at 170, which was maybe too high with the cosmetics and stuff, but we weren't even getting offers at 140, 150. We were getting 110, 105, stuff like that. And really that was just people lowballing sight unseen. They weren't really looking at the photos or going to look at the property. They were just like, hey, we'll give you this for it. But anyway, so I dropped the price to 150, 149.9, and I went down there, inspected the property myself so I could really just have a clear idea of what it needed. And so that if people were giving me feedback, I would know what was actually going on rather than what people say. And I made a checklist of everything that needed. I did new photos and videos of me being there. And I came back, I put it on Craigslist. I put it up on Zillow because we own it. So it's easy to put it on Zillow, and put it on a few Facebook groups. And I got a bunch of calls, a bunch of texts, all that stuff. Wholesalers, lowball offers, real estate agents, but a few real buyers in the mix. And one buyer in particular is very interested. They're relocating from New Jersey to North Carolina. Our house was at the top of their list. They were not afraid of it being a fixer, and had skills to do that. And so I went down there this past Friday. Today's Sunday, and I had it in my mind I wanted to fix this one plumbing leak so I could test all the plumbing in the property and make sure it was all good. So I went down there. I scheduled the lawn to be mowed with some neighbors who volunteered to do that for pay, and I fixed this plumbing leak. And then I met with these people. They drove down from New Jersey, and we made a deal on the property to do the owner financing deal. So the way the owner financing looks on that is that they're bringing in 15,000 down, and then they're paying $1,200 a month. And our mortgage that we're paying is $850 a month. So that means we'll have a monthly cash flow of what's that? $350 a month monthly cash flow, and then we get the 15,000 down payment right off the bat. So and then what we're into it now, because we paid a mortgage on an empty house for 12 months, is we're at about 150 cost, and we're selling it for 150. So we're break even on the sales price, but that was a win at this point because we weren't able to move this property for so long. It was just time to move it. And then the other thing is we'll make money on the back end with compound interest. And if you don't know how compound interest works, it's magic. But if for example, if you do a loan for 150,000 and say it's at 9%. We usually do 9 or 10%. If they pay that for 30 years, they're going to be paying this will be 135,000, but basically you pay like 3 or 4 times what the loan balance is. They'll be paying like 400,000 if they pay the whole thing off. So if they paid for 30 years, we'd make a couple hundred grand on it. If they pay for 10 years, we'll make 50 or 60 grand on it. So we'll still make money, but we won't make as much as if we had had a bigger sales price. But the big one is to get it off our plate, because it was really an energy drain to have a property sitting for 12 months that didn't move, and just not knowing what was going on with it. So I feel very relieved and very grateful to have moved it, and it felt good to just go down there and actually do a deal in person, because we do everything remotely these days. So it was really good to
Yeah,
meet with people in person and do a deal that way. Um, but yeah, so that's it. So it's not, I don't want to count my chickens before they're hatched. We have, we have an agreement on the property. These people are very motivated and want to move and close within 2 weeks. And so I feel confident about the deal, and I can report back once it closes. But I expect to close it within the next couple of weeks here. And
that's great. That's amazing.
that's the wrap on it. So it's not our normal just straight up wholesale deal. We've mentioned before, I do some subject to and owner finance deals, and we have, I don't know, 8 or 9 in our business right now that are owner finance deals. We do that on vacant land a lot. But we also have, this will be our third subject to that we've sold this way, that we bought the house subject to and then sold on owner financing. So we have 2 already in the works that are paying us monthly cash flow, and then we'll make, we make the compound interest. And we made more money on the purchase price on the other 2 that we have, and then, we get a down payment too for security and cash flow. So anyway, there it is.
Yeah, well, you make it sound very easy when you do the recap like that, but it's not an easy deal to close.
Yeah, and not every lawyer will do those deals. So, we have a couple of attorneys that will do subject to deals, but not everyone will, especially when you're wrapping a subject to with an owner finance, because it's another layer of nuance. And there's paperwork that has to be done to acknowledge that and disclose that, and et cetera, et cetera. But um, yeah, it
Yeah,
is
so
it is a
so if you guys
complicated.
are in North Carolina, you can definitely reach out to Mark, and he can connect you with the attorney he likes to work with for those type of deals.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
um, but yeah, just to recap, you said you closed it in May of last year originally. Do you remember how long it took before you were on market, like with the eviction and that whole process? Do you remember how long before you actually listed it?
I would have to say it was 2 months, but that's just off the top of my head. I don't
Yeah.
know that I can pull it up quickly enough. I mean, the
So
eviction,
you probably listed like end of July, August timeframe.
yeah, yeah. And we could pull it up on Zillow. It's 6951 Johnson Road.
Oh yeah, you can just do it that way. But then you were on the market. Do you remember? I mean, I guess we can look that up too. But do you remember how long you were on market before you kind of took it off and decided to go out and inspect it and everything?
Well, we were on market for 6 months. We did the full length of the listing.
Right.
And then once it expired, it was like, okay, we got to do something different here. It's taking me to my listing on this. It's taking me to my listing because I'm the owner of it. So it's not
No, it's
showing me
all
the
good.
it's not showing me the history on it. Home value, equity, blah blah blah. Yeah, go ahead. What were you asking? So
I was
so
just
yeah.
asking. I guess I was asking like the steps that you took after taking it off the market.
Okay, so probably what we did is I remember the eviction went more fast and easily than I thought it would.
Hmm.
So I think I would sit, let's just give that 2 months to get the house empty. And then I think after the house was empty, we had to pay some contractors to go in there and haul junk and clean up the yard and do that. So that's probably another couple of weeks, right? And
Yeah.
then after we got the place cleared out and we got some photos of it, we blasted it out to our buyer list and Facebook groups, Facebook Marketplace, that stuff. So we probably gave that 2 to 4 weeks, I would guess. And then when we had no interest there, then we would have put it up on MLS. We're probably talking about 3.5 months in before it goes up
Hmm.
on MLS. So May, June, July, August, right? Now the delivery guy's here. All right, I've got to pause this.
No, it's all
Let me
good.
pause, go talk to them. So yeah, just to recap, we were talking about the timeline on this deal, and what I was saying is I think it was probably about 2 months to get the house vacant, and then probably a couple weeks beyond that, maybe even a month to get trash hauled away and the grounds cleared up and some photos and a couple of repairs. And then from that point, we tried to sell it to our buyer list, and then on the various channels, Facebook Marketplace, Facebook groups, stuff like that. And then when we didn't get action there, then it would have gone on the MLS. So I think the MLS expired about a month ago. So what's this? Maybe the end of April or something. So if you backtrack that, we probably put it on the market late summer of last
Hmm.
year, probably 4 months before we put it on the market. And then we had some showings from agents and stuff like that, but nothing really serious. And um, so then I kind of got frustrated and fed up with it and went down there, and then we finally got it sold. So I guess
What do you
that's
think
the
the difference was the second time around? Like when you just recently got it sold, very quickly. Do you think it was the pictures? Do you think it was the price? What do you think made the difference there?
Yeah, I think price plays a factor. I think, I mean, I am a believer in energy. What you focus on expands, and what you put your energy into, you know, where your attention goes, your energy flows. And I was determined to get it sold because I was very
Yeah.
frustrated and ready to have it sold. So I was willing to do whatever I could do to get that result, and I made it my top priority last week. So I think that's a big factor in it. The buyer came from Zillow. The buyer came from the Zillow post that I did. So you can, if you're the owner of a property, you can post it up on Zillow.
So that's interesting
So,
though, that the Zillow for sale by owner worked better than the MLS listing in a sense.
yeah,
Yeah, that's funny. I think
just
with the Zillow Fisbo listing, for sale by owner, I think you might get more serious buyers maybe because with the MLS listing you get mostly agents, and then it seems like they weren't giving you any sort of help in terms of feedback or offers or anything. But with this,
yeah,
with the for sale by owner, I think a lot of direct investors reach out because they're just trying to do a deal direct with the seller. So maybe that worked in your favor on this one.
yeah. And this was an individual buyer who plans to live there. So they were looking for a house to live in, and I guess, were looking for sale by owners because they didn't want to work with real estate agents or something. But
Yeah.
she said she said they had 2 or 3 people, but then once they knew they could see this one, this was their top priority, and they came, and we agreed on full price. So, which I don't normally discount on owner finance deals. If you are asking me to finance and I'm taking that risk, I'm not discounting the sales price also.
Hmm.
So I wasn't flexible about that. But yeah. So, but it is interesting that the FISBO worked better than listing it on the MLS.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, some people who are looking for homes, they might just toggle that little box on Zillow for sale by owner only because you can do that. And I think some people might just choose to do that as opposed to looking at all the listings that are listed on the public market, MLS. So maybe that worked in your favor here. It's cool. But just for
Yeah,
everyone listening to when they're doing these type of deals, which is typically called like a wrap, right? When you're doing it subject to and sell owner finance, when you're doing
yeah.
those type of deals, are you typically asking for a certain percentage of the sales price as a down payment, or how do you typically do that just for people that are trying to structure a deal like you?
Yeah. Well, in this case, we just took 10% down, and normally it's a factor of what we've put in cash wise. Normally, we try and get whatever cash we've put in back out at closing. So if we put in, I guess in my example, is 115 was what the mortgage was, and then we put in another 20 to close the deal, so we were at 135. When we originally posted this, we were asking for 20 down and 1,200 a month, because then we would have broke even on the cash we had put out to close the deal, and then we'd just be going forward from there profitably. In this case, because we were trying to move this property fast, I dropped it down to 10% and just said, hey, if you can give me 15K down, which is 10%, then we're good. Even though that represents sort of a loss, as it were. We're not recouping what we've put out of our pocket yet, and we won't recoup that for a while until compound interest and the monthly cash flow kicks in. We won't break even on this for, I'd have to do the math, but we won't break even for a little while. But at some point, as long as they pay this loan for 10 or 15 years or 20 or 30, we'll hit a break even point and then be profitable on it. So it's not an ideal deal. This was just really a get this property sold deal and get it off our ledger and stop hemorrhaging money on a monthly mortgage. It wasn't like
Yeah.
a woohoo, we're making a big profit. But like I said, the point of it is we could make a big profit if these guys pay for 20 or 30 years. We will make a big profit.
Yeah.
If they pay that loan off really fast, then we'll be closer to break even. So that's just, and the other thing about this that's a totally different wrinkle when you're talking about the world of investing is, people do buy notes. We're creating a note on this, a promissory note, and somebody might buy the note because that's long-term gain that they could have, right? But
Yeah.
you have to discount your note to sell it. So we would end up losing more money. We wouldn't do that, but in some cases you can sell the note. So it's another
Yeah.
another option for exit and getting cash out.
Yeah, it's a great point. Yeah, so that's a great breakdown. A lot of good takeaways there. I mean, thinking outside the box, listing it on for sale by owner yourself instead of going to MLS again, listing on Craigslist, which some people think that Craigslist is dead, but it's definitely not. You can still get
No,
buyers off of there.
you will get people. Yeah, you will get
Yeah.
people.
And just thinking about it on a longer time horizon. A lot of people look at wholesaling as like fast money, and it is, but you can also make money in real estate in like medium money. If you're doing like fix and flip, might take 3 to 6 months, or if you're doing like a rental or a note like this, you're going to make money over 10, 20, 30 years. So just the combination
Yeah.
of those different strategies can be a good idea.
And I think we broke down that other one in Durham that I did in this same method, the wrap. And I never remember how much money I made on that, but it was a good chunk of money. It was like 50,000 or more, 50 or 60,000 on that. And they
Yeah.
paid it off within, I mean, I did that deal in 2020. And so they paid it off 2025, right? Or
Yeah. So
maybe
it's only 5 years.
in 5 years, I made like 60K on that deal ish.
Yeah.
So, and if they had held that thing for 10 or 15 or 20 years, I would have made 100, 150, 200K. So, uh,
Yeah.
in this case, if you are thinking long term, it's really good because you can set yourself up for long term gain, and not
Yeah.
just think about wholesaling as you make the money and then you got to get another wholesale deal, you got to get another one, you got to keep getting them to keep your business going. So I'm trying to do a blend in my business of owner finance deals and wholesaling and, you know, maybe other strategies as we go to keep a balance of revenue coming in different streams at different timelines.
Yeah, it's a great strategy. And for people who aren't familiar, the owner finance is the best form, in my opinion, if you're going to do like a rental or anything, because it's not a rental, you're selling it directly to a buyer. And so they're taking care of the property much better than a renter would. So if you ever have to foreclose, they're probably taking care of the property in a good way. And most likely you're not going to have to foreclose on those type of people. So it's a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And compound interest is magic. Rentals, if you're doing rentals long term, then you're counting on the appreciation of the property. If you're doing an owner finance deal, then you're counting on compound interest for your,
Yeah.
but as Jasper said, you do not have to think about taking care of the property, which is a huge bonus because
Yeah.
somebody who has rentals, usually by the time they're ready to sell them, those are the people we get for wholesaling, and those properties are usually trashed.
Yeah.
But they've still appreciated, so they're still making money.
Yeah. Definitely.
All
Awesome.
right. Well, did you have something else, or should we wind down here and do a final segment?
Yeah. Let's wrap it up.
Okay. Well, for the closing segment, let's do inspiration and education. If you have anything in that realm, podcasts or books or anything that you'd like to share.
Yeah, I didn't have too much this week, but I had one good one that was with Nick Huber, and he was on the forgetting the name of the podcast now, but let me find it real quick. But either way, it was Nick Huber, and I've talked about him before on this show, but he bought the company called somewhere.com, which I actually used earlier this year to find an employee. Basically, they source talent all over the world. The podcast is called Money Wise. Sorry about that, but he was on a podcast called Money Wise, which is by another entrepreneur that I look up to. And I really like Nick because I've talked about this before, but he just preaches the sweaty startup is his like social media handle or whatever. But he preaches just, getting down and dirty and doing the businesses that other people don't like to do, whereas not going after like the Silicon Valley, try to invent a startup and a unicorn type business, but just going after the HVAC and the plumbing and, just the boring
Yeah.
businesses that will make you a lot of money, kind of similar to Cody Sanchez. She preaches the same thing. But I really like that. It was just breaking down kind of his revenue. They get really granular on that podcast and break down people's revenue numbers in their business and their personal life, like what they spend money on and stuff like that. And so I really liked listening to his take on that stuff. And he was also sharing that his business is very lumpy, and I didn't, kind of expect that. But I guess in the recruiting business, there are high seasons and low seasons, and
Mm.
so he has like the beginning of the year apparently is like a really high season, and then the summer kind of gets slow, and then the end of the year when people are trying to revamp their business for the next year picks up again. So I thought that was interesting. And then
Yeah.
he has a couple other businesses that are kind of the same way. So he just was stressing the importance of making sure to always keep cash in the bank and making sure to always take money out of your business for yourself, because that'll get you through those slower months where you can weather the storm and then have those big months again. So another one of his businesses is with cost segregation studies, for taxes for real estate investors. And obviously that's only busy like probably 6 months out of the year, maybe 4 months out of the year when people are, doing their tax returns. And so he has a few different businesses like that that are very seasonal. And so that's why he recommends, always keeping a cash reserve and just never overextending yourself personally, like spending lavishly on your personal life so that you can weather those storms in business and vice versa. So I really like that one. That was a good one. But I would recommend anyone, listening to him or following him on social media. He's got some good stuff. And he came out with a book that I'm also reading, which is just called Sweaty Startup. So that was good. But yeah, that was mine for the week.
Sweet. I like that. Yeah, it's funny because the one I was going to share is Scott Galloway. I've been doing a deep dive with him this week and listening to a lot of his content. It was sparked by hearing him on Chris Williamson, and then listen to some of his other stuff. And then I got the audiobook, The Algebra of Wealth, which is really great. And I was listening to that while I was driving to and from this house to fix the house and sell it that we were just talking about. But really great stuff from him, just about personal finance and building wealth and finding your niche and what you're good at. And he like dispels the idea of follow your passion. I like that concept from him. Is just like get good at something and you'll be passionate about it. But following
Yeah.
your passion is kind of it really put things in a good perspective for me, because Jasper, you and I have both followed passions. You know, had a near miss with being a pro basketball player, and I got close to grabbing the golden ring as a musician. You know, I did a lot of stuff in that world, and but he's like, if you're not in the 0.1% in one of these types of professions, then think again, because it could make a lot of heartache. And it's really true.
Yeah.
Like he says, if you're in the top 10% of basketball players, you're going to get cut from your JV team. You know, you need to be in the top 0.1% to actually make it to the NBA. So,
Mm-hmm.
and it's the same thing with musicians and actors and a lot of these sort of glamour professions. So if you find something that matches your skill set and can be competent or good at it, which I think real estate is for me, then you can succeed in it. And when you have some success, then you gain some more passion, and you can also create financial freedom so that you can do other things that you love, whether it's play basketball or write poetry or whatever else. So anyway, he's great. I recommend him. I love that book so far, the Algebra of Wealth. And can't remember if there's anybody else I got. I'm still listening. I'm still reading Raise Your Game by Alan Stein. That's really good. And then I did a workshop this week with the Investorbase guys, the founder Daniel, and just talked about best practices and features that are coming up with Investorbase. And we've talked about that a lot. We're not an affiliate for Investorbase. We probably should be with how much we shout them out, but they're just a great platform for disposition. But it also really helps with acquisitions, and the platform they've built is really user friendly. And then they continue to bring value with sharing their best practices and their metrics and the results that they're getting, and how you can implement their SOP in order to get better results. So felt really inspired by them, and also inspired just by, a couple of younger guys starting a company and really putting everything into it and growing it. It's really cool to see, and they saw a niche that was needed, and they created a platform to fill the niche, and now they're growing it. And Jasper and I have talked about this in the face of wholesaling being under fire in North Carolina and maybe nationwide, that a lot of people are going to pivot and do other things. And if you recognize a niche and you can find a way to fill a niche, a lot of real estate investors have already done that. Steve Trang is, now a sales trainer. He's not necessarily a real estate investor as much anymore. And other people have done that. Aside from just being a guru, there are other ancillary businesses you can do to succeed. So that's inspiring to see those guys doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's all I've got. So any tools or anything that we talked about Investorbase. We were talking about Scale Army, which both of us are looking into, but we haven't tried yet. It's in the same vein as what Jasper just mentioned somewhere for hiring. These are going to be headhunting companies that are maybe a little bit more expensive when you're ready to hire somebody, at a higher level, which both Jasper and I are now, just foregoing the bringing people on board and training them route and bringing people on board and expecting them to hit the ground running more and be already experienced in the jobs that we're trying to hire.
Yeah.
Anything else for tools or anything, Jasper?
I don't think I have anything new. No.
All right, I guess we're gonna call it a day. I was looking to see if I had any quotes, but I don't think I can pull one up quickly enough. That book, Alan Stein book, has a lot of quotes in it, so I've been writing a few of them down. He's got good stuff from a lot of basketball players and stuff. Energy and persistence conquer all things, Ben Franklin. How about that?
Yeah, it's a good one to end on.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for listening. And we're talking about doing a live format. So if you'd be interested in that, drop a thumbs up or something in the comments, because we may just do, Jasper's had some call for that on his Facebook, people asking him about doing live Q&A. And we would love to do that if we have people interested. So we could take one of these Sunday sessions and just open it up to Q&A, or set a theme and have Q&A on that theme or something. So let us know if that would be interesting to you. And yeah, have a great week, everyone.